Paris transforms completely before the world awakens. There's a version of the city that almost no one knows. A silent, empty Paris, bathed in a soft light that transforms ordinary avenues into cinematic settings. In that brief interval between dawn and sunrise, the city ceases to seem like just a tourist destination and begins to reveal something far rarer. Something that cannot be found on maps, travel guides, or perfectly edited photographs. While millions of people imagine Paris as a bustling city, full of queues, crowded cafes, and rushed streets, there is another side that only appears to those who slow down enough to notice it. It is at that moment that the sound of footsteps echoes through the narrow cobblestone streets, that the golden lights reflect discreetly in the still-closed shop windows, and that the Seine River seems to glide slowly through a city that is still sleeping. Perhaps that's exactly why so many people come to Paris expecting to find beauty, but few truly experience the city. Because Paris doesn't reveal its essence during the hustle and bustle of the day. It appears in the small details, in the steam rising from a cup of coffee on a cold morning, in the unexpected silence of an empty square, in the bluish light of dawn reflecting on the old facades. In Paris, beauty rarely shouts. It whispers. Even the most famous places seem completely different at this time of day. The Eiffel Tower appears in the distance among old buildings as if it were a natural part of the landscape. The bridges over the Seine are almost empty, and the cafes slowly begin to set up their outdoor tables while the smell of fresh bread wafts through the quiet streets. There's something almost cinematic about the early morning hours here. The illuminated windows create small points of warmth amidst the gentle chill of dawn. The still, closed Musée du Louvre exudes an almost untouchable elegance, and the streets of Montmartre, bathed in the soft morning light, seem to preserve fragments of a Paris that existed decades ago. Perhaps that's exactly what makes Paris so different from other famous cities. It doesn't just impress with its architecture or history. Paris impresses with its atmosphere, with the constant feeling that there is hidden beauty on every corner. There's even a small café in Saint-Germain-des-Prés where many locals arrive before 7 in the morning just to watch the city slowly awaken. Nothing seems extraordinary there. A few small tables, the smell of strong coffee, golden light streaming through the old windows, and yet, it is precisely in these simple places that Paris seems most unforgettable. As the sky slowly begins to lighten, the city awakens little by little. The distant sound of the first cafes mingles with the discreet hum of the metro starting to run. The light grows warmer, the streets begin to bustle, and it is precisely at this moment, when Paris slowly awakens, that the city begins to reveal its most unforgettable face. As the morning progresses, Paris picks up pace without losing its delicacy. The cafes become more crowded, bicycles begin to weave through the narrow streets, and the sound of hushed conversation slowly fills the sidewalks. Yet, there is a calmness that is difficult to explain. Unlike many large cities, Paris seems to invite people to slow down without them even realizing it. Perhaps that's why so many people dream of living here for a few days. Not just to visit famous monuments, but to experience small routines that seem simple and special at the same time. Sitting in a cafe watching the rain fall on the old streets, wandering aimlessly along the banks of the Seine, buying a warm croissant in a small boulangerie, while the city slowly awakens, and some places make that experience even more intense. A café de fleurs entre les deux magots, cause quai deux époques as they have for decades. Writers, artists, and travelers have spent years observing Paris from these spots. The smell of hot coffee mingles with the morning chill as locals and visitors watch the street life. At times, a lady reading alone by a window or someone writing silently in a small notebook makes the scene seem like something out of an old movie. There's a strange familiarity to Paris. Even those who have never been here have probably imagined what it would be like to stroll through these ancient streets. Observe the illuminated cafés, or wander leisurely through Montmartre at the end of the day. The city seems to be part of people's collective memory even before their first visit. And perhaps that's exactly what makes Paris so captivating. In Montmartre, simply venturing down a few smaller streets reveals a Paris completely different from the tourist hustle and bustle. Quiet little staircases, artists painting near the Place du Tertre, ivy-covered walls, and old cafes create an atmosphere that seems detached from the rest of the city. Places like La Maison Rose still look like movie sets, especially when the late afternoon light begins to bathe the neighborhood. There's a specific moment in Paris when the entire city seems to slow down at once. This usually happens just before sunset, when the lights begin to change and the Seine starts to reflect golden and bluish hues between the ancient bridges. And the closer the city gets to night, the more intense that feeling becomes. Because there's a place in Paris where the sunset seems to completely transform the city. And almost every visitor tries to find the best spot to watch this unforgettable moment. When night finally arrives, Paris seems to change its identity once again. The city that impresses during the day with its elegance and history slowly begins to transform into something much more intimate. The golden lights reflect on the Seine, the cafes become more crowded, and even the air seems different. There's a feeling that's hard to explain about Parisian nights, as if the entire city was created to be observed after sunset. Perhaps that's why so many visitors seek out the best spots to watch the sunset here. From the top of the steps of the Sacre, see your basilica. Paris seems endless. On the Pont Alexandre III, the golden lights create one of the most cinematic views of the city. And around the Trocadero, the Eiffel Tower ceases to seem like just a monument and begins to appear as a living part of the Parisian landscape. But there's something curious about Paris that few people notice on their first visit. The city doesn't try to impress all the time. Unlike many modern destinations, Paris doesn't depend on excess or constant grandeur. Its charm lies precisely in its imperfections, in the old walls marked by time, in the cramped cafes, in the narrow streets where light barely enters. And perhaps that's the most interesting question. How many cities still manage to feel human? In many places around the world, everything seems planned for perfect photographs. In Paris, many of the most memorable scenes happen when no one is trying to create a special moment. A violinist playing near an empty bridge, people sharing silence at a small table on the sidewalk, smoke billowing from the subway grates on a cold night. There is also a fascinating contradiction here. Paris is one of the most visited cities on the planet, and yet it manages to preserve small spaces of silence. Just a few streets away from the busiest areas, you'll find hidden gardens, discreet galleries, and small old bookstores where time seems to slow down. And perhaps it is precisely in these places that Paris becomes unforgettable. Because grand monuments impress, but it's the details that remain in the memory. The reflection of lights on a wet street after the rain, the distant sound of cutlery and conversations escaping from a small restaurant in Le Marais, the sight of the Eiffel Tower unexpectedly appearing between old buildings. There's even a specific moment at night when Paris seems almost unreal. When the Eiffel Tower begins to glow and thousands of people automatically stop to watch in silence. Some record videos. Others simply stand motionless, gazing at the city. And the later it gets, the more Paris seems to reveal something that remains hidden during the day. There's a Paris that almost never appears on postcards. A city hidden behind famous avenues, crowded museums, and endless lines in front of historical monuments. And often, it's precisely these less obvious places that make people truly fall in love with the city. Just a few minutes walk away from the busiest areas is enough to notice this. Small, quiet streets emerge between old buildings covered in ivy. Discreet doors hide cafes illuminated by soft yellow light. Covered passages house small bookstores, antique shops, and stores that seem to exist outside of time. There's a curious detail about Paris that surprises many people. Despite its reputation as a luxurious and sophisticated city, much of Parisian charm stems precisely from its small imperfections. The old metro stations, the walls worn by time, the cramped apartments, nothing seems excessively modern or artificial. And there's something even more surprising hidden beneath the city. Many people don't know it, but beneath the elegant streets of Paris lies a vast underground labyrinth known as Les Catacombes de Paris. Kilometers of ancient tunnels crisscross part of the city, carrying centuries of history. The contrast between the illuminated Paris of the surface and the subterranean silence of the catacombs makes the city seem even more mysterious. Perhaps it is precisely this blend of beauty and mystery that makes Paris so fascinating. The city never reveals everything immediately. The more you walk, the more details appear. Small gardens hidden behind ancient gates, silent staircases in Montmartre, nearly empty cafés in the early morning. Places where tourists disappear and the city seems to reveal its most authentic version. There is also a very common experience among people visiting Paris for the first time. At some point during the trip, they simply stop chasing after tourist attractions. Instead of trying to visit 10 places in the same day, they just start wandering aimlessly. And interestingly, it is precisely at this moment that Paris truly begins to function. The best moments here are almost never planned, like popping into a cafe just to escape the rain and ending up finding the best hot chocolate of the trip, discovering an empty square while looking for another address, or crossing a bridge at the exact moment the city lights begin to reflect on the Seine. There's even a small, hidden garden near the Palais Royal where many locals go simply to read quietly in the late afternoon. No major tourist attractions, no queues, just Paris existing in its simplest form. And perhaps the most impressive thing is realizing that, even after so many centuries, Paris still manages to evoke the same feeling in millions of different people. The impression that there is something magical hidden around the next corner. But there comes a moment when Paris stops seeming merely charming and begins to become almost mesmerizing. This usually happens late at night. When the streets become emptier, the activity slows down, and the city takes on a completely different atmosphere than that seen during the day. At this hour, walking through Paris evokes a strange feeling. While the city seems alive, it also seems just silent. The golden lights continue to reflect on the Seine. Some restaurants remain open. Taxis slowly cross avenues wet from the recent rain. And for a few moments, Paris seems suspended in time. Perhaps it is precisely at this moment that many people understand why so many artists, writers, and filmmakers have spent decades trying to capture the essence of this city. Because there is something profoundly emotional in the way Paris blends beauty and melancholy. And this feeling becomes even more intense during the early morning hours. While much of the city sleeps, some places continue to buzz with activity. Small, hidden bars in Saint-Germain-des-Prés still welcome people chatting near their illuminated windows. Musicians discreetly appear near the bridges. And the later it gets, the more Paris seems to transform into an intimate, almost personal experience. But something curious happens to many visitors. At some point during their trip, they realize that Paris doesn't exactly match the idealized version created by films and photographs. The city can be tiring, it can be cold, it can be chaotic. There are huge queues, crowded streets, and gray days. And surprisingly, this doesn't destroy the city's charm. It might even strengthen it. Because the true beauty of Paris isn't in appearing perfect, it's in appearing real. And that's precisely where the big change happens. When visitors abandon the expectation of finding a perfect city, Paris finally reveals its most authentic version. Moments cease to be planned. The best memories emerge unexpectedly. A simple dinner on an unfamiliar street ends up becoming unforgettable. A walk without a destination leads to a silent square lit only by old lampposts. An ordinary late afternoon transforms into a lasting memory simply because of the light reflecting off the old buildings. There is even a very specific moment, just before dawn, when the city seems to return to complete silence. The streets empty again, the Seine slows down, and Paris seems to return to the same silent atmosphere as at the beginning of the trip. And as the final night approaches, an inevitable feeling begins to emerge. The impression that Paris still holds something you haven't quite discovered. As the sky slowly begins to lighten again, Paris seems to breathe differently. The streets are still silent. The lights of dawn remain reflected on the Seine, and the gentle morning chill covers the city as if everything were beginning anew. It is at this moment that many people realize something unexpected. Paris is not just a place to visit. Paris is a city that changes the way you see the world around you. Perhaps because here, even the simplest moments seem laden with meaning. A small cafe opens early as the smell of fresh bread wafts through the street. Café de Flore welcomes its first customers of the morning. A couple slowly crosses the Pont Alexandre III before the city fully awakens. The first golden light hits the ancient rooftop scene from Montmartre. They are simple scenes, small, almost silent, but they end up remaining in the memory in a way that is difficult to explain. And perhaps that's exactly what makes Paris so unforgettable. Many cities impress with their grandeur. Others draw attention for their modernity. Some surprise with their speed. Paris does the opposite. It slows you down. It makes details matter again. It makes wandering aimlessly seem enough. There is something profoundly human about this. In a world where everything happens too fast, Paris seems to constantly remind us that beauty also exists in pausing, in lingering cafes, in unhurried conversations, in the old streets that have remained practically unchanged for decades. And perhaps that's why so many people return to Paris more than once, not because they managed to see everything. That would be impossible. There's always another street to discover, another hidden cafe, another silent bridge, another sunset reflected on the Seine. Paris seems to hold small fragments of itself for those who decide to return. But there's something even more interesting. Often, the strongest memory of Paris isn't a famous monument. It's not the Eiffel Tower gleaming at night, nor the grandeur of the Louvre Museum. What remains are unexpected moments. The feeling of walking alone on a cold morning, the sound of rain falling on the cobblestone sidewalks, the light discreetly filtering through an old window. Perhaps because some cities are merely destinations, but Paris, it's a sensation. And in the end, perhaps that's exactly what makes certain trips unforgettable. Not the number of places visited, nor the photographs taken, but what silently changes within us as we walk through unfamiliar streets. Paris is still there, ancient, elegant, imperfect, alive, waiting for another sunrise reflected on the Seine, another night illuminated by golden lights, another person willing to slow down enough to see the city beyond the postcards. If this video gave you a little taste of Paris, leave a comment. You can even leave it anonymously, just sharing which city in the world has most impacted your life or which place you still dream of visiting someday. And if you enjoy cinematic journeys, visual experiences, and stories that make you slow down for a few minutes, like this video and subscribe to the Seletto Stilo channel to follow our next adventures.